Hey there, folks. It's the Badger Pilot, one of your co hosts of the Flying Midwest podcast, with another installment of what we're referring to as a QuickCast episode, where we have a short but timely discussion about current events in aviation. Most of you have likely noticed by now that the smoke from the Canadian and Minnesotan wildfires has made its annual pilgrimage to the Midwest, and it's wreaking havoc on more than just the aviation world. It's bringing health concerns to the general public, but its untimely arrival is also settling in at Oshkosh the week before Airventure. As of the recording of this episode, the air quality index in Oshkosh is 292 nanograms of pollutant per cubic meter of air. To put that in perspective, exposure to these conditions is considered by experts to be equivalent to smoking a half a pack of cigarettes. The current air quality is bad enough that even healthy individuals are encouraged to stay indoors whenever possible and use an air purifier. If you have to go outside, or if you're visiting Airventure, health experts recommend limiting physical activity and wearing a mask. The smoke has reduced visibility to the point where flying, even with an instrument rating and on an IFR flight plan, is pushing the limits of safety. Personally, I was supposed to do a flight for Uphaven earlier today, but unfortunately, we had to cancel. Uphaven, by the way, is a nonprofit organization, so this was a humanitarian flight, so I really didn't want to have to cancel, but unfortunately, the smoke at my destination was reducing visibility down to minimums, and shooting an approach back at my local airport would have proved impossible with no alternate options nearby. Choosing to cancel this flight was a tough decision, but it was the right one. I've also heard reports that yesterday, the pilot of a plane headed for Oshkosh had to declare an emergency because they were becoming disoriented in all of the smoke. They called Oshkosh Tower for help, and the controller helped talk the plane down to safety. Now, I've confirmed these reports with a trusted source of mine, and from everything I've heard, this controller should be commended for their exceptional work. And by the way, this was a controller who works Oshkosh on a daily basis, not one of the hand-picked controllers from around the country to work Airventure. So great job, and thanks to that controller at Oshkosh. Looking at the forecast ahead, it doesn't look like central Wisconsin will be getting relief from the smoke anytime soon, and it's expected to continue through the opening few days of Airventure. Although the winds are expected to shift to be out of the south in the next day or two, they're also predicted to stay at a light breeze, not strong enough to push the smoke back out to the north. The poor air quality and reduced visibility are expected to linger through the weekend and potentially into the opening of Airventure. So if you're flying into the show, be ready to divert. The arrival procedure calls for being able to see traffic ahead of you and space yourself at either a mile or a half-mile interval, depending on what runway configurations they're using. If you can't see that far, you certainly won't be able to give yourself the proper spacing. Expect the airport to be closed early on in the week to VFR arrivals, and be ready if plans change. Now, I recently put out a video about how crazy the Fisk arrival can be when the airport is closed, and even in good conditions, planes were flying the wrong way and creating all sorts of safety hazards, and we could see them and avoid them. But this problem could be severely exacerbated if people try to fly the arrival in visibility that simply isn't safe to mess with. Lastly, though I don't know how huge of a risk this is, but it's something to think about, is some aircraft might be affected by smoke. If your plane is like mine, it still has a vacuum system in it for critical instruments like the attitude indicator and the directional gyro, which, by the way, especially in instrument conditions, which we have now, are absolutely crucial. Pollutants in the air, such as smoke particles, have a tendency to be more abrasive and larger than the usual dust, so there is a chance that a system like that could get clogged and cause a malfunction. And other systems rely on air too, most notably, the engine. You need air for combustion, and if there's smoke particles in the air, then it could potentially affect their performance. So if you're going to fly, pay extra close attention to these systems. Now might be a good time to actually open up your POH and review what systems rely on outside air and how they work. Beyond the smoke, which hopefully will clear up soon, the weather for Airventure looks absolutely beautiful, with high in the low 80s and only a moderate chance of rain or maybe a small storm on Monday. Of course, I'm sure the usual pop-up severe storm associated with weather in the Midwest will show up at some point, but that's just to be expected with Airventure. I hope to see many of you there, but I can only see you if you get there safely. So if you're flying, do it when visibility improves. And if you're driving, keep your activity to a minimum if you're having trouble with breathing. And no matter what, make sure you stay well hydrated, bring your sunscreen, and have your best walking shoes broken in. Until Airventure, see ya!